All right, today we're jumping into something that might just change how you think about, well, everything. Life, biology, intelligence. We're going to explore a completely new way scientists are learning to talk to our cells. And not by rewriting their genetic code, their hardware, but by communicating directly with the body's hidden software. So let's just start with a question that pretty much throws a wrench in everything you probably learned in high school biology. Can your cells, using the exact same DNA they've always had, be convinced to build something completely new? Something that was never in the original blueprint? The answer, incredibly, is a huge yes. And look, this is not science fiction. This is happening right now in Dr. Michael Levin's lab. I mean, think about this. They've got worms that regrow their heads, which is wild enough, but they somehow keep the memories from their old brain. They've taken frog skin cells, put them in a dish, and watched them team up to build tiny, living robots. They can even tell a group of cells in a tadpole's gut, hey, build an eye here, and they do it. So, how on earth is this possible?
To get our heads around this, we have to look past the genes themselves. We need to explore life's secret software. See, there's a whole other layer of information running the show, a dynamic language that tells the cells what to do with their genetic hardware.
And that language is bioelectricity. Now, we're not just talking about your brain and your nerves. No. Every single cell in your body has an electrical charge. And these patterns of voltage create a network, a sort of shared intelligence that lets cells communicate, make decisions, and store a memory of what the final body is supposed to look like. So this is the most important idea to grab onto. Think of your DNA as the hardware. It gives you the raw materials, right? The proteins, the individual Lego bricks. But it doesn't have the instruction manual. The bioelectric patterns, that's the software. That's the blueprint that tells all those little cell workers, okay, team, we're building a hand right here, or this is the goal, this is what a healthy liver is supposed to look like.
Michael Levin puts it perfectly. He says evolution discovered that electrical networks are a great way to compute long before brains and muscle came on the scene. This is the key. This isn't some new hack. This electrical communication is ancient. It's the original intelligence that nature used to build complex creatures in the first place.
Okay, so hold that thought about bioelectricity because we're about to take what might feel like a crazy left turn. We're going to jump into 20th century philosophy for a minute, but I promise you this is the key to understanding how we can actually talk to ourselves. Let's start with something super simple, a statement. This is a chair. Seems obvious, right? The words point to a thing. The meaning feels solid, locked in. But what about this? Suddenly, those same words just become noise, don't they? Without any context, without a reason for saying it, the phrase, "this is a chair," is basically meaningless. The meaning isn't in the words themselves. And you know, this exact puzzle is what drove a famous philosopher to totally blow up our understanding of language. That philosopher's name was Ludwig Wittgenstein. And early in his career, he had this very rigid idea that language worked like a picture, where every word was a perfect label for a fact about the world. But then he took a long break, and when he came back, he realized he'd been completely wrong. He came back with a totally new, radical idea. And here it is, his big revelation. He said, the meaning of a word is its use in the language. Meaning isn't some fixed definition in a dictionary. Meaning comes from the context, from the language game we're playing. Pointing at a chair to identify it is one game. Using the word chair in a joke is another. The meaning comes from the shared activity. And that brings us right back to biology. We're about to connect these two seemingly separate worlds. We're going to see how Wittgenstein's idea about language gives us an incredibly powerful new tool for understanding and actually speaking the body's language. So here's the big question, the one that ties it all together. What on earth do headless worms and little frog-skin robots have to do with some philosopher from the 20th century? Well, as it turns out, everything. This slide right here, this is the whole argument in a nutshell. On the left, you've got the old way of thinking, what Wittgenstein called a picture theory. In philosophy, words just pointed to facts. In biology, genes just built body parts, a fixed blueprint. But on the right, you have the language game view. In philosophy, meaning comes from use, and in Levin's biology, genes are just the words, the tools that cells use. The bioelectric signals are the language, the context, the game. It's how you persuade a group of cells to play the build an eye game.
And this forces us to see cells not as dumb little bricks, but as what Levin calls agential material. That means matter that has its own goals, its own problem-solving skills. So you don't micromanage it by rewriting every little bit of genetic code. No, you communicate with it. You give it a new goal, a new context, and you trust the collective intelligence of the cells to figure out the rest.
So you can probably see where this is going. This shift in thinking, it has huge implications. It forces us to completely redefine what we even mean when we say the word intelligence. It's definitely not just something that happens between our ears.
For centuries, science has had this deep-seated fear. Levin calls it telephobia. It's this anxiety about giving anything agency or a goal if it doesn't have a brain. The new way of thinking replaces that fear with a practical idea, a spectrum of persuadability. It's just an engineering problem. You ask, what's the best way to get this system to do what I want? For a bowling ball, you push it. For a dog, you offer a treat. And for a collection of cells, you speak their bioelectric language.
The big takeaway here is that intelligence is literally everywhere. It's a basic problem-solving ability that exists in all living things. And it's not just in the 3D space we see. It operates in anatomical space, in metabolic space. We usually miss it because our own brains are wired to recognize intelligence that moves and acts like we do. As Levine says, being able to recognize diverse forms of intelligence is kind of an IQ test for us.
So what does all this mean for us? I mean, for the future of medicine, and maybe for what it even means to be human?
Well, for medicine, this could be a complete game changer. The goal is no longer to fight a microscopic war, tweaking every last molecule. Instead, the method is to just rewrite the bioelectric blueprint, the pattern memory. You basically give the tissue a picture of the healthy, correct state, and then you just get out of the way. You let the cell's own collective intelligence do the work to get there. And the potential results? Regenerating limbs, correcting birth defects, even convincing tumors to stop being tumors and become normal, healthy tissue again.
And for Levin, this isn't just about cool new technology. As he argues here, it's a moral imperative. His point is that our bodies aren't some perfect, sacred design. They're just what evolution happened to stumble upon. And because of that, he says, we have a responsibility to use our intelligence to fix the bugs, to cure disease, and to improve life.
Which leaves us with one last, massive question to think about. If intelligence is this fundamental property of living matter, and our bodies are just one type of biological software running on genetic hardware, then what exactly are we? By learning to speak to ourselves, we might just discover something profound about who and what we really are.